Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. It is Thursday, and that means we speak with the legendary Jonathan Twombly. How you doing, sir?
I'm great. How are you, Michael?
Oh, I'm doing very well. I've been looking forward to this interview or this discussion. I knew we were going to talk about it a year ago, but it looks like all the rent declines and all the stress in San Francisco and New York is already reversing, and near as I can tell, reversing fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. The big cities are back, right?
This is just kind of like the market working, right? The rents got cheap enough that people started looking at it and going, wow, that's cheap. I'm going to go rent my own apartment now. I'm not going to share anymore. And now that, we bottomed out a while back and now we've got things roaring back. I think I mentioned on the podcast a couple of months ago that brokers up in New York, really kind of around January, were already saying that the net flows have reversed and the net flow was back into the city. It had been away from the city and they expected that like by June, now here we are in June, that it would be fully back to like inflow, without a question. And so here we are. And if you're seeing rents rising, that is clear evidence that, that's what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's not only rent rising, but it's also vacancies. And again, it's just the market being the market, right? We saw a mass exodus, vacancies rise, bad debt or hard collections rise. That worked its way out. I think I reported, I want to say it was San Francisco, where a 1-bedroom, 1-bath was down 45% rent, kind of peak to trough. That's enough for some people, like you said. I'm not going to have a roommate. I'm going to go get my own instead of having 3 people in a 1-bedroom. I'm going to go live in my own spot. You don't have to do that very long where all the 1-bedrooms are suddenly gone. And you're like, whoops, I guess we got to raise rents again.
Yeah. I'm frankly kind of now in retrospect, looking back on things, a little bit surprised that rents went down as much as they did. And the reason is because, I've seen markets in New York City before where the market got soft, but landlords didn't want to lower rents. And what they did was instead they ramped up concessions because the concessions would burn off. Like they would give away 2 or 3 months of free rent, which for that first year is effectively, that's a 20%, 25% rent discount.
Right.
But they didn't want to have their lease rent changed because then they got to build it back up over time. They wouldn't be able to go put in like a 25% rent increase right away. So I'm a little bit surprised, frankly, that landlords were willing to reduce rents. And my suspicion is that there's probably a lot of new and desperate landlords, right, who were panicking and thinking about like, oh my God, I'm not going to make my debt service. I've got to get, the end of the world is coming. Everyone's leaving New York, and not really having faith that things would turn around as they tend to do, right? Yeah. So and I think also like what we're seeing now too is that a lot of people kind of like they decamp for the suburbs, or they all tried to buy houses and they can't buy, like all these people trying to buy houses in the suburbs, and it just didn't work, right? Because there just wasn't enough supply of houses there wasn't enough supply of houses already beforehand because nobody was putting stuff in the market because nobody knew where they were going to move. But then suddenly now you had like, everybody who was thinking like, yeah, someday I'll probably move to the suburbs, like all at once, all tried to buy a house. And of course, there's not sufficient supply. So those folks have all decided like, oh, hey, I can get a bigger apartment now because rents are cheaper, or I can move out and get my own apartment now because rents are cheaper. I don't have to move to the suburbs. So I think that's, also part of what you're seeing. And rents across the board, it's not just the big cities. Rents are up everywhere.
Yeah, they are. So for sure.
Because the economy is coming back. And once again, we've got people looking to rent and, household formation starting again. So rents are up across the board. Again, so it's not surprising they're
Yeah, and I think also as we've been, for a year, you and I talked about the job picture. It was all negative news. Again, we haven't talked about it at all today, but the unemployment claims were under 400,000 today. Yeah. And really what that means for me in New York and San Francisco, thinking about this topic is, I don't know, for about 6 months, like the service sector was basically a ghost town. If a restaurant needed 40 people for their multiple shifts, now they needed 10, right? So there were entire kind of sets of folks that are like, oh, I'm going to go move in with mom and dad. I'm going back to Virginia or, Ohio or wherever it was. Certainly happened in San Francisco too. But now, it's open. I mean, San Francisco or New York, the Madison Square Garden was full for that basketball game I saw the other day. I was like, oh my God, New York is back. Broadway is starting up. It's crazy.
I mean, everything is ramping back up again. The hotel people are, I was actually talking about this the other day about the fact that, people still can't really fly abroad anymore, but now they're able to fly domestically.
Absolutely.
Where are they going to go?
Yeah. Leisure travel is through the roof. Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to be coming to New York. They're going to, they're going to be coming to San Francisco. They're going to be going places like that because they're still unable to go anywhere else. Right. So,
my prediction is Vegas is going to be a party of all parties. Like 4th of July weekend in Vegas. Oh my God.
I mean, listen, people are saying that stuff already about it, like how just the shackles are off.
Let's go.
Nuts this summer. So I think it'll be a good tourism season. It's too bad they can't get Broadway up and running for the summer. It's going to be September when that happens, but still it's good that people can come and go to restaurants and go to museums and, stuff like that. So, So again, the death of the big cities is over exaggerated. I think, I think we saw a trough. Yeah. We certainly saw a knee jerk reaction to that 45% drop, in California. That's going to take a while to come back because we have rent control in California. So, you're 5% plus caps or plus inflation. Yeah. I mean, we do in New York too, but I don't know how it works when you drop the rent. Like it has something to do with historical rents as well. So if you drop the rent, you may still be under the market rent and you can go back up to whatever the cap was. I don't think the cap ratchets down because you went down.
Oh, okay.
But one thing though I do want to point out about this, so that I have been seeing, looking on Crexy and places like that, just kind of following the markets. I'm starting to see bankruptcy sales in New York City. So there are clearly some landlords who couldn't make it, right? And so they're now, foreclosed on or gone bankrupt or what have you. And so we're starting to see some of that. Now, the question really is going to be to what extent, that happens. Is it going to be a lot of bankruptcy sales? And they tend to lag the market, so you could see the market returning, but some of those people have already been foreclosed on or
it's a process.
Handed the keys back or what have you. Maybe they because they just couldn't make it. But it'll be interesting to see how much of this winds up coming onto the market.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, let's wrap this up. You have a special thing that you only do twice a year that you're doing right now. We'll have the link below the first line in the description. Why don't you tell them what it is and why they need to be a part of it?
Yeah, so twice a year I put up a free 4-video training series about basically how you do syndications. And what we talk about in this series, if you sign up at the link, you'll get an email about 24 hours later that links you to a series of videos that will be dripped out over the next few days so they don't overwhelm you. But they're not long, it's sort of 20 to 30 minutes each. The first one talks about exactly what happens in a syndication. I know for a lot of people, they know like, well, you go buy a deal and there's an LLC involved and then investors get involved somehow. And I'm not really sure how that works. Just walk you literally through how that's structured, exactly what that means so that this is no longer a black hole for you. You know what that looks like, and also how you get paid as a sponsor, which is very important, right? So that's the first video. The second video talked about how you actually find deals, like how you go and you get brokers to work with you, even though you're new, and how you find deals for your syndications. And then the remainder of the series is all about how you raise the money, right? So it's one thing for people to know, like, oh yeah, well, you get investor money, but they're like, well, how do I do that? How do I find investors? Where do I find investors? Once I find them, what do I do with them? How do I get them onto my platform? And once I get them on my platform, how do I sell them a deal? The last part of the series walks you exactly through that process as well. So this is up, just once every 6 months. And then at the end of it, if you want to, there's an offer to join one of my programs. Obviously you don't have to. The first most of the video series has nothing to do with selling anything, so you can watch it and don't not worry about being pitched. But if you want to continue and go further, you have the opportunity. The other thing that I should mention, I forgot in the last video, is that each of the videos also comes with a workbook. So the idea is that if you download the workbook in advance and just take notes as you follow the videos, you basically walk away with like a playbook of how to get started. So
very cool.
So that's how, and it's all, like I said, it's all free.
Very cool.
Just trying to give some value.
Yep, folks. And if you don't know anything about Jonathan Twombly, he has an entire playlist below, likely with 100 hours of material. Check it out. He is the man. Thanks, man. Take care.
Absolutely.